House flipping is extremely risky. And if you've been in the game long enough, you know that you are bound to lose some money. And if you're new to this game, that might come in as a shocker to you because you kind of think, aren't I supposed to make money when I do house flipping? Why would I try to lose money? We obviously don't try, but the matter of the fact is that when you do a lot of volume, eventually you are going to lose money on a deal. That's why it's important to have multiple deals. That way, if you do lose on one, you can kind of mitigate risk a little bit, and hopefully that win is going to pay off the loss. I've been in this exact scenario before where I lost $250,000 on a house flip that I held for a year and a half, almost 2 years. And this happened because of multiple different things. And I'm going to use this example in this video to share with you exactly the 3 ways that you can lose money when flipping a house. Typically, to lose money, you end up doing 2 of these things. And if you're really, really lucky, you do all 3. Because typically one thing will affect the other and vice versa. So again, in this video, I'm going to teach you guys what mistakes to absolutely avoid and why it's super, super important to run your numbers conservatively. So let's get into it. So number 1, when it comes to flipping a house, the first way that you can lose money is by determining the wrong renovation budget. When it comes to renovating a house, you need to be conservative on your numbers and make sure you're accounting for at least 10 to 20% of your renovation costs in a contingency budget. And the reason for that is because things come up. When it comes to flipping a house, you just don't exactly know what you're actually getting into until you start actually doing the project. For example, when you go ahead and do demo, there might be something crazy underneath those walls that you just did not know until you open up those walls. There might be extreme wood rot, termite damage that you didn't otherwise see on the external structure when you were walking the house and creating the scope of work. So with that being said, that is going to increase your budget on your renovation budget when you already bought the house. And if you didn't put that contingency in there to make sure that you had that money just in case these things happen, then you're crap out of luck, because the reality is that things always happen. And when it came to that $250,000 loss, our original rehab budget was $165,000. And yes, we did mitigate for some money, which about 10 to 20% is about $16,000 to $30,000. But the matter of the fact is that we went $100K over budget and ended up spending closer to $260,000, $265,000. The reason why that had happened was because we had hired a contractor that wasn't able to complete the job, and unfortunately we had to hire a new contractor who ended up having to redo a ton of the work that the original contractor did wrong. Now, like I had mentioned, typically when one thing goes wrong, it's gonna end up bleeding into another thing. The second mistake that you don't wanna make when it comes to flipping a house is increasing hold time. Now, obviously, with the increased renovation budget, if we had to fire a contractor, bring in a new one, and they had to redo some work, then clearly we have a longer hold time. And this is what I mean exactly when I say that when you mess up on one thing, it typically will bleed into the other. And that's why 2 things usually get affected when you lose money on a house. And so again, the second thing is holding costs. Typically, when you are buying a house to flip, you are paying some high interest on this money. And in that project specifically, I was paying about 10 to 12%. But when the loan went past that year point, I was paying closer to 15 to 20%. And so the increase in renovation costs also caused increase in holding costs, because again, we had to do double the work essentially and bring in a new contractor to actually get the permits done in a timely manner. And the crazy thing is, like, you don't just have extra money costs on the interest, you also have to pay extension fees. So for that project specifically, we ended up paying an additional $10,000 to $15,000 every 3 months after that year mark just to extend the loan with the hard money lender. And so when you increase your holding costs, this can really affect your bottom line when it comes to flipping a house. If you only left $50,000 of profit into the deal and you ended up extending multiple times, that can really add up to the profit that you actually were supposed to make. And so you really have to be careful when it comes to holding time and try to finish your project as quick as possible. Now, the third thing that you can make a mistake on when it comes to flipping a house and end up losing a lot of money is calculating your wrong ARV. Your ARV is your after repair value, and this is what you think that you can sell the property for once it's completely fixed up. And you have to remember that this has to be a conservative number because the reality is you do not know what the property will sell for. It's an arbitrary number that you really have to guess. The only thing you have control over is how much you buy the property for. And so you have to be conservative on that ARV because in the case that you make that amount, great, you already accounted for that. But if you end up selling for less, then shoot, you might end up cutting into your profit. So let's say, for example, on that property I was talking about specifically, we thought we were going to sell it for $1.35 to $1.4 million. And we ended up selling that for $1.235 million. That's a significant difference. In that property specifically, just from ARV, there's $150,000 of difference in there. And if we didn't expect to profit $150,000 based off the 1.4 ARV, then there's all our profit again. And so this is what I mean. You get hit from one angle, and typically when you list your property for too high because you're trying to get that number, you already held the property for so long, it kind of shoots yourself in the foot because you end up holding the property for even longer because it's overpriced. So this is what I mean by when you do one wrong, you typically go bleed into the other. And I've seen so many properties sitting on the market that are way overpriced and they end up sitting for years, sometimes multiple years, until they come down to earth at the regular market value and end up selling for a huge, huge loss, more than what they would have lost if they just put the market value up front and didn't have to incur so much holding costs. So there it is. There's your top 3 ways that you can lose money when you're flipping a house. It's super important to mitigate all of these things and run your numbers conservatively. And if you're interested, I actually help my students create a custom blueprint for them based off of their resources and time to help them find the first deal and get paid, and coach them exactly how to run the numbers so that they don't lose money like I did. Don't be that guy that learns from your own mistakes, learn from others' mistakes, and take their advice. Thanks for watching, guys. See ya on the next video. Shoot!